I found the receipt tucked between the pages of his copy of the Wall Street Journal, folded so small it might have been mistaken for a bookmark. Dinner for two at Le Bernardin, the same restaurant where David had proposed 3 years earlier. Except this time, the date stamped on the receipt was last Tuesday, when he told me he was working late on the Henderson account. The irony wasn't lost on me. In 2 weeks, Grandmother Whitmore would sign her revised will, the one that left her entire estate to David because, as she'd told me countless times, he chose such a wonderful wife and built such a strong family foundation. $7.3 million, all because the old woman believed we were living proof that true love still existed. I smoothed the receipt flat against my kitchen counter and made my decision. The next morning, I called Grandmother Whitmore's housekeeper and arranged to visit that afternoon. I'd been making these visits regularly since David's father died 2 years ago. She was lonely, and I genuinely enjoyed her stories about growing up during the Depression, her insights into building the family textile business, her fierce opinions about modern society's moral failings. "Miranda, darling!" She greeted me at the door of her Beacon Hill brownstone, her silver hair perfectly coiffed despite being 91. "How lovely! I was just thinking how much I've missed our chats." We settled into her sun-drenched parlor with Earl Grey and her cook's legendary lemon scones. The familiar ritual gave me time to steady my nerves. I wasn't planning to lie. I'd made that promise to myself. Whatever happened next would be built on truth, even if I was selective about which truths to share. "You seem troubled, dear," she said, studying my face with those sharp blue eyes that had once intimidated boardrooms full of men. "It's nothing serious," I began, then paused, as if reconsidering. "Well, perhaps it is. I've been worried about David lately. He's been different." Her teacup clinked against its saucer. "Different how?" "He's working such long hours. Sometimes he doesn't come home until midnight, and when I ask about his day, he becomes evasive, defensive even." I met her gaze directly. "Yesterday, I found a credit card statement he'd apparently tried to hide. Expensive restaurants I've never been to, charges at places I don't recognize." This was true. I'd found 3 such statements, all carefully concealed. Grandmother Whitmore's expression shifted almost imperceptibly. "Men his age sometimes go through phases," she said carefully. "That's what I tell myself. But then there are the phone calls he takes in private, the way he guards his phone, how he's started showering the moment he gets home." I let my voice crack slightly. I keep wondering if I'm being paranoid or if I'm simply refusing to see what's right in front of me. She reached across and patted my hand. "Trust your instincts, Miranda. In my 91 years, I've learned that women's intuition is rarely wrong about these matters." Over the following weeks, I visited more frequently. Each time, I shared another carefully chosen observation. How David had started buying expensive cologne I'd never seen him wear around me. How he'd become secretive about his weekend plans, claiming work obligations that seemed increasingly implausible. How he'd grown distant, distracted, as if his attention was perpetually elsewhere. "He used to tell me everything," I confided during one visit, watching her arrange chrysanthemums from her garden. "Now I feel like I'm living with a stranger who happens to share my last name." "You have considered that there might be someone else?" she asked gently. I let silence hang between us for a long moment. "I suppose I have, but I keep hoping I'm wrong, hoping that the man I married, the one you've always said has such strong character, is still in there somewhere." Her face had grown increasingly grave during these conversations. The woman who had built a business empire through shrewd judgment of character was drawing her own conclusions about her grandson's behavior. I never had to spell it out. She was intelligent enough to read between the lines. 2 days before the will signing, she called me. "Miranda, I need to ask you something, and I want you to be completely honest with me." "Of course. Is David having an affair?" I closed my eyes, thinking of all the evidence I could have presented, but hadn't. The receipts, the hotel charges, the private investigator's photos I'd commissioned but never needed to show her. Instead, I said simply, "Yes, I believe he is." The silence stretched so long I wondered if the line had gone dead. "Thank you for your honesty," she finally said. "I know this must be incredibly difficult for you." That afternoon, I watched through my kitchen window as Jeffrey pulled into our driveway, probably returning from another business meeting. He had no idea that Grandmother Whitmore had just finished a lengthy conversation with her attorney, and that her estate would now be funding scholarships for underprivileged children instead of securing his comfortable future. He'd done this to himself. I'd simply held up a mirror until she could see who her grandson truly was. The divorce papers were already prepared. Tomorrow, I'd file them. But tonight, I'd let him believe his inheritance was still secure, just as I'd let myself believe our marriage was still intact until a folded receipt taught me otherwise. Some revelations, I'd learned, were worth their weight in gold. Please like and subscribe for more great divorce revenge videos.